Hi, I'm Al Hassinger, Activities VP for Greater Oakland Republican Club, otherwise known as GOGOP. Welcome to On the Right Side. We have with us today Chairman of the Oakland County Board of Commissioners, Mike Gingell. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you.
The board is a part-time position, I understand, although it might not feel that way. Can you tell us how you balance, or a little bit about the board, and then how you balance work, government, and your personal life?
Sure, absolutely. So it's a great question. I get the question all the time. What does the Board of Commissioners do? Who are you? What is a county commissioner? So in simplest terms, the Board of Commissioners is the legislative branch of Oakland County government. So we are the group that approves policy for over 4,000 employees at Oakland County, and we approve expenditures in the budget for the entire county. So that is our main role, in addition to setting the millage and tax rates and addressing any ballot questions that come before the voters.
And why do we have a county layer of government? We have the state, we have federal, we have all these different entities. Why do we have something at the county level?
Yeah, I think when you look at how it all works and intertwines, the county level gives you good representation at the local level and probably works the closest with the townships, cities, and villages. So we really are that liaison between the absolute local layer of government and the state and federal level, which a lot of times just seem out of touch to people.
Right. Well, we're all about local governance and bringing things closer to home as conservatives and Republicans. When people hear about the commission and L. Brooks Patterson, what's the relation between the two? Is it like the president and Congress? How does it work together?
Yep, it's very much like the president and Congress, the governor and the state house and state senate. Brooks Patterson is the administrative branch of government, and we are the legislative branch of government. So Brooks and his team will propose policies, they'll propose a budget, they'll propose plans, and they'll come to the board, and it requires 11 votes of the board. There are 21 commissioners. It requires 11 votes of the board to approve anything.
Okay. And Oakland County is home to something like 900 companies from around the world, maybe even more?
Yep, we have a number of companies from around the world. The global presence is very impressive, and we hope that it continues to grow because it diversifies our base. We're lucky to have a good balance of medical type companies, automotive type companies, and companies that are emerging through the emerging sector programs that Brooks Patterson and his team created many years ago.
I think that diversification is good because when things go to ground, like we saw in Michigan years ago, if you were totally tied to the auto industry, maybe that's that's just too many eggs in one basket. It's my understanding that the largest employer in Oakland County, I believe, is Beaumont Health System.
Correct.
So it's not even an automotive firm, which I think would surprise many people. What do we do to make the county attractive to these companies relocating or locating to the United States?
Yeah, well, in my opinion, I think it comes down to a couple things. First of all, we demonstrate that we're a well-run government, and they know that when they come into Oakland County, they're going to be working with a government that runs like a business, and it can relate to what they're trying to do. The second thing is that we have a great labor pool. So many companies are coming in and they need capacity. They need people to help fulfill roles to make their company successful. And Oakland County has a highly educated and well-diversified talent pool that the companies can draw from. And then I think the third thing that's important is just all the other recreational and cultural activities that Oakland County can provide, all of our parks and lakes, and just the all in all, the general well-being that a company can provide for their employees when they come to Oakland County.
Right, affordability of housing, maybe not a super long commute, all the things that Michigan has to offer. Well, as to keep the county attractive, it's been run in a very conservative way, both with conservative principles, sort of like business-oriented principles. I understand we have a 3-year budget. We've put a lot of or most of the county employees into more of a 401k plan, so there's not much pension overhang. What do we do to keep that going forward, that it doesn't come unstuck? We worked very hard to get to this place. How do we ensure it is there in the future?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just good leadership and following tried and true principles. So, being creative on how we address concerns so that we don't end up with the budget deficit is really step number one. And the administration does prepare a 3-year budget. It's something that we've done for a long time. We really adopt the first year, but the second and third year is forcing us to look at what's coming out on the horizon. So if you're always looking ahead and you're preparing for what's ahead and you're running scenarios, just like you would in budget, when you're budgeting in a private sector, it helps you stay ahead of that game. And then I would say making smart choices on what we spend our money on. and making sure that we're prudent and that we are reasonable in providing reliable and good services, but always treating it as if it were your own money and making sure that at the end of the day you keep the balanced budget so you don't overspend more than what you're taking in, and that you're providing the services that are necessary. And sometimes that means you can't provide all the things that might be nice to have.
Right. That's a very good point. The one thing that I understand, there's still a little bit of a pension overhang for people who were, or an unfunded liability for a pension overhang for people who were traditionally in that pension system. How's the county addressing that?
Yeah, well, I would say that's something that's really unique about Oakland County. We don't have an underfunded pension balance.
Okay.
Most governmental municipalities or governmental entities that you'll talk to, they'll say that one of their biggest concerns is their unfunded pension balance. So I believe it was about 1996, the county made a decision to cut off and cap the defined benefit plan and to grandfather those that were in it. But going forward, anyone else that was new came in under a 401k type plan where the employee contributes and there is a match, but it doesn't obligate the county to all of those future long-term benefits.
And it also has other benefits, like it's portable if they were to leave their job.
Absolutely.
They own it. It can be a legacy. Pensions in the old days, there was a vesting period. Even teachers go through it, whether it be 10, 20 years. You could work at a job for quite a long time, and if it just wasn't for you, you'd be out of luck when you left.
Exactly. So we changed that model. And then we bonded for all the, basically had an actuarial run the expectancy of all the people contained in the defined benefit plan. We went out and bonded for the amount that we anticipated we would need over the course of the lifespan of the participants.
Right.
And we are fully funded.
That's fantastic and rare.
And rare. I'd say very rare.
One of a handful of counties with a AAA bond rating out of 3,000 and some in the entire country.
That is correct.
The budget for this year is going to be, I think, $887 million.
Yeah, it's roughly $878 million.
78. How do you prioritize that?
Well, what we do is it starts really in April. So we'll adopt the budget in September of every calendar year, but the process starts in April. And every department comes in, they make their case on the money that they need and why they need it. There's a lot of discussion and modification that occurs from April to September, as you can imagine. But really, we start with the major needs. Public safety is the biggest aspect of our budget.
Right.
And certainly that's a critical item because we have to have a community that's safe and provides a safe environment.
And there's more money to work with because of increase in property values. I think it's an additional $10 million that's going to the budget. And that's not because of increased taxes, simply because people's homes are worth more and there's more tax revenue coming in. We always like to see the things that need to be done, but could there be something along the lines of a tax cut in the future if that revenue keeps coming in and you've fulfilled all those other needs? Yeah,
I would say anything's possible. If you look over the last 4 to 5 years, Brooks proposed and the board adopted tax cuts. So we put tax cuts in place even within the last 5 years. The thing I would say about the incremental money coming in, when you looked at what happened when the economy went south in 2008, the dip went like this at Oakland County. And based on Prop A, the SEV and taxable value can only increase at a certain rate. So we're really not back to pre-dip levels. It doesn't mean that there might not be an opportunity to give some of that money back to the people. But what we did in the interim period between the downturn and now is we put off a lot of spending on core assets, buildings, things like that. So there definitely is a need for consistent CapEx spending. And now it's going to be a matter of how do you prioritize that incremental money coming in? Do you address the items that have been deferred over the course of the last 5 to 10 years or not? And I would propose that from the taxpayer standpoint, we have assets that we've invested in. We need to make sure that those assets are keeping their value.
What's the biggest expenditure of the budget?
Biggest expenditure is really public safety, so the sheriff and all the related expenses in that department.
I saw a sign that said that they've moved to legalize potholes in Michigan. Funny, but it seems there are a lot of problems with our roads. It looks like in the budget there was an additional $1 million for local road improvements. I think that'll get you about 10 degrees of a new traffic circle. How is the county addressing the problems we have with our roads?
Sure. So that's a question that we get a lot as well. And I guess the thing about Oakland County is the roads are really the responsibility of the Oakland County Road Commission, which
Okay.
is like a separate entity. Now, the Board of Commissioners appoints the road commissioners, but that is essentially the extent to which we're involved from an Oakland County government standpoint. The other thing that I think is sometimes a misnomer is people talk about their property taxes going towards roads. The property taxes don't go towards roads.
Okay.
It's the gas tax and the vehicle registration tax that go towards the road infrastructure costs. So as you pay your registration and the tax and the gas-related tax, that money goes to Lansing. It's then appropriated out based on a formula, and then Oakland County Road Commission receives a share of that. Now that I've said that, let me say something else. But we, as the Oakland County Board of Commissioners and Brooks Patterson as the executive, we recognize it's an issue. We drive on these roads every day also.
Right.
So the board, even though we are not responsible for the roads, we have put in place two programs. One's called the Tri-Party Road Program, and we're only one of, I think, 2 or 3 counties out of the 80-some counties in Michigan that do it.
Okay.
But the county puts in $2 million, the Road Commission puts in $2 million, and then the local municipalities have to match to get the money. So it's a way to get extra dollars into the system.
Sure.
The second thing that we did was we created a bi-party road program about 2 or 3 years ago, and that is meant to really drive additional funding towards the villages and cities who really maintain their own roads. They're not necessarily maintained by the Road Commission for Oakland County.
Right.
And it allows that same match process to be used with village and cities. And then the last thing is we worked closely with the Road Commission a few years ago when they were looking to spend money on equipment, and we were able to provide $2.5 million to assist in the acquisition of equipment, which allowed the Road Commission to take that money and put it into potholes and other things. So even though the board's not responsible for the roads, we've put in over $10 million in the last 5 years of general fund money.
Well, it's certainly, there's obviously work to be done, but I'm happy to hear that the money is going towards the roads. It seems like there isn't any stretch of road that doesn't need some attention, except for that little piece right in front of the Road Commission. I think is smooth as a billiard table, but that might be another show. We're speaking with Mike Gingell. He's chairman of the Oakland County Board of Commissioners. We're going to return with another segment, so stay with us. Thank you.
Good.
Welcome to GOGOP Moments. My name is Ross Ensign. I'm the Vice President of Communications for the Greater Oakland Republican Club. We'll be interviewing different guests at our meetings and occasions, and our first guest would be Brad Jacobsen, our former state representative. He's currently serving on the State Board of Liquor Control. Brad, do you have a few things to say about GOGOP?
Hi, I'm Brad Jacobsen. I grew up in Oxford. I still live there. I've been around the Oxford Lake Orion area my whole life. My family's been here for since the late 1800s, actually, in Goodison. I love going to the Greater Oakland Republican Club meetings in Canterbury Village. It's so interesting because we get a wide variety of subjects for each meeting. We have speakers come in. People ask me why I used to be involved in local government, why I wanted to be involved. It's because I wanted Oxford and Lake Orion to be the way it was when I grew up, with that sense of community and not turn into urban sprawl like we see in some of the communities well to our south. So going to the GOGOP meetings is great because now that I've stepped back, I can still keep abreast of what's going on in the community, whether it's pro and con on road issues or on public service issues, or maybe gun issues, whatever. We cover a wide range of subjects. It's really interesting. It's a quick evening, once a month. So I hope you'll be able to come and attend. I'm really happy that we have this program on cable right now because it allows you at home to get a little feel for what we do and what happens at the Greater Oakland Republican Club meetings. So I hope you can attend. My name is Brad Jacobsen. I'm in the book. You got any questions, give me a call. It's a great organization, and we're in a great community in Oxford, Lake Orion, and North Oakland County.
Hi, I'm Al Hassinger. Welcome back to On the Right Side, brought to you by GOGOP, the Greater Oakland Republican Club. Today we're speaking with Mike Gingell. He's chairman of the Oakland County Board of Commissioners. Welcome back again, Mike.
Thank you.
We were talking a little bit about roads earlier in the show. The RTA is obviously comes up time and time again. I think the fear for people in Oakland County is it's just a bailout for Wayne County's woes. Can you tell us about where the county stands on the RTA, the Regional Transit Authority?
Sure. So this is a tough one because in two respects, I guess they have differing opinions, right? On one side, our job is to protect the taxpayers of Oakland County. On the other side, there is this issue to be more regional and have transportation that connects the entities within the region. So I think the statement that Brooks has consistently said is if it's an issue that's good for the region and it's good for Oakland County, we're 100% for it.
Right.
If it's good for the region and it's neutral for Oakland County, we'll support it. If it's good for the region and it's bad for Oakland County, we can't support it.
Right.
So, so let's start there. Regional transportation, up until this point, in my opinion, has been good for the region and not necessarily good for Oakland County. The last plan that was put on the ballot that was just narrowly defeated would have had Oakland County paying the most and probably getting the least benefit.
Right, so people out in sort of the hinterlands, if you were up in the northern part of Oxford or something like that, or just any part of the county that isn't in a more condensed area, they might see no service at all.
Yeah, you'd be paying for a service that you probably would never utilize and potentially never see. So that was just something that I thought was a bad deal and was something that I wasn't able to support. And the other thing with the previous regional transportation plans and the one that is currently being stirred around now is we have the ability to opt out. A community can opt out and say, I don't want to tax myself, I don't want to participate, like for the smart busing system that we have today.
Right, which they seem to ride around 90% empty, at least when I see them.
They do. But in our northern community, we have a system called North Oakland Transportation, NOTA, which is funded through the opt-out credits that we get through the SMART system. And the previous RTA plans weren't accounting for any of that. So my other issue with the RTA plan is a lack of understanding on the planner's part that we already have smaller transportation systems in northern Oakland County that people use and people are satisfied with.
Well, this is that local form of governance that we better understand our own communities, neighborhoods, needs, things like that. You know, if someone's down in Detroit and you're living in a fairly condensed area that has already an infrastructure in place that might support mass transit, no matter what you call it, RTA or whatever else, it's probably applicable because it's been applicable for decades or a century. Up here, it might be nice, but really how much could we utilize it?
Well, and I think does the cost justify the benefit, right? And when you look at the startup cost, that's one piece of it. But if you study the operational cost of, you know, transit systems in San Francisco, Chicago, Denver, other areas, generally those operational costs are at best break even.
Right.
And so this is something that if you get into, you better be committed to being into it for a long, long period of time.
It's going to cost money no matter what. They simply don't make money, is my understanding. Even if you looked at the People Mover, it loses something like 90 cents on the dollar. 9 out of 10, you know, 90% of everything is a loss, not 9%. Nothing like that would, I'm sure, be as bad as with a regional transit authority. But you also run the risk of putting something in place that's going to be short-circuited by technology, like Uber. You know, who would have predicted Uber 10 years ago when they probably started talking for the nth time about the RTA, where if you have somebody who lives out in an area where it isn't not a lot of infrastructure or people, maybe sending a car up to get them to take them to some need or just want would be beneficial over having a bus route that might go up there and not collect anybody up.
Well, and even when you talk bus and train, et cetera, you still have to have the ability to get from wherever you are to the hub.
Right.
Right? And so to your point, there may be all types of things such as autonomous vehicles, Lyft, Uber, all new forms of mobility that could change the dynamic of a regional transportation system.
People talk about the benefits of mass transit, and I lived in New York for a while, and people say, oh, that must have been so convenient. I said, yeah, it's so convenient until you have to shop for groceries. You know, how do you get that home on a subway or in a cab? I think we run into the same problems out here. Something a little more serious than the RTA is challenges that the county right now is seeing with human trafficking, opioid crisis, and then certainly what we've recently heard about going on up at Central, school safety. Could you address each one of those? Say school safety first, because it's really on people's minds about what's gone on recently.
Sure. So obviously making sure the kids are safe when they're at school is priority number one. And the school system within Oakland County is really overseen by the ISD. But I would say from a county perspective, we look to put patrol contracts in place with each school, have officers in the school. I know that Sheriff Bouchard is very passionate about making sure his officers are trained, and we have active shooter training facilities within Oakland County that the sheriff deputies go through. So you never want to have an incident occur, but I can assure you that if something occurs in Oakland County, Mike Bouchard's done a great job in preparing the county sheriff's department to be able to respond. But I do think the school and the superintendent of schools has also done a good job looking at ways to try to prevent.
Right.
And as unfortunate as that might be, the biggest things that we can focus and work on is prevention and then ability to react if something does occur.
And I think community engagement, when they're familiar with the officer who might be in the school, and the children have a very positive attitude about that and understand why he's there for their own safety instead of an adversarial attitude towards it. I think those all add up, that the people go to school prepared to learn, they want to be in a safe environment, and the community is supportive of that. So, and Sheriff Bouchard was not Sheriff of the Year for nothing. He obviously is a great leader for us to have here in Oakland County.
Well, he's America's sheriff, I believe he was named.
Right.
And I would say within Oakland County, he's known as the sheriff.
Right.
Because he does a good job.
That's fantastic. The opioid crisis, we hear about it all the time. It's really an epidemic. People dying from drug overdoses. It may start somewhere else, but it leads to harder drugs. What's the county doing to combat that?
Yeah, so the county's done a couple things. Again, it's in the same mold of prevention and then reaction. So on the prevention side, you may be familiar, but the administration has filed a lawsuit against the manufacturers of opioids to try to condense distribution of pills. And then on the reaction side, we've certainly been working through how to address it, how to deal with it. We've invested significantly in Narcan, which is the drug that essentially
that
brings
revives
people back to
people
life.
after they've OD'd.
And we've used a lot of it, but unfortunately in Oakland County, the opioid use is on the rise. It is a huge problem, and I think we need to continue to work closely with other entities to figure out the best way to address it.
That Narcan sounds like a dream come true, except it means you're reviving people who have OD'd. So it's great that we have it, but it's a shame that we have to have it. On human trafficking, it seems like something that would be so far removed from the suburbs of any place, but it's my understanding it happens all over the place. Can you tell us how the county is addressing human trafficking in Oakland County?
Sure. So human trafficking is a big problem in Oakland County. It does happen in your local area. If I were to reference some places, which I'm not going to do, but if I were, I think people would be very shocked. So again, the county sheriff's department has put together a task force and has been working to really undermine human trafficking in Oakland County, and then also connecting throughout the country and other parts of the world to get a network in place to combat it.
Right.
At the Board of Commissioners, we actually formed a human trafficking committee where we became the galvanizing entity across various law enforcement departments to get a common conversation going, to get common practices in place on how to prevent it and how to address it. So a lot of it starts with education and awareness, and then it gets into really unifying the officers that are able to address it and prevent it.
And do you work with other counties in the state? Is there a coordination between counties that have a particular problem, or just in general? I'm sure that the problem does not end where Oakland County ends or Wayne County ends or Washtenaw or anything like that. How do you interact with other counties on any of these topics to help prevent human trafficking, the growth in opioid crisis, or even to coordinate on good ideas for school safety?
So as a county, we participate in the Michigan Association of Counties called MAC, where the Michigan counties get together and they share and talk about common policies and practices. And then we also participate in the National Association of Counties called NACO, and we do the same type of thing on a national level. When it gets into an opioid distribution network or it gets into a human trafficking entity, those things become legal actions. So that moves from the board and the administration to the sheriff's department. And certainly the sheriff and his deputies are coordinating with other counties in Michigan in the United States and beyond.
Okay. We've been talking to Mike Gingell. He's chairman of the Oakland County Board of Commissioners. We've talked about what's happened and what's happening in the county. What can we expect for the next, say, 5 years? Aside from the topics that we touched on, what is the county looking at going forward? We're very good at planning for things. What's in the pipeline for the next, say, 3 or 5 years?
Yeah, well, I think you're going to see an economy that remains pretty good and pretty stable. I think you'll see housing values continue to rise, which is good for everyone.
Absolutely.
I believe you'll see businesses continue to expand. And I think one of the biggest challenges will be our ability to create a consistent and ongoing labor pool to fill the demand for capacity.
Right.
And I'm not talking necessarily just about engineers, doctors, et cetera. I'm talking about vocational type trades, welders, plumbers, auto technicians. I get requests on a regular basis for companies to help find people that want to work in those fields. So you're going to see within Oakland County Economic Development, Dr. Tim Meyer, who was a former chancellor at OCC.
I know Tim, he's fantastic.
He's very good, and he was just appointed to fill that role.
Great.
And his focus is going to be driving the labor shortage and ensuring that we have capacity for all the companies that want to be here.
Tim Meyer spoke and told us about the shortage, exactly what you're talking about, the shortage of skilled trades. And particularly if you were a welder or an electrician or were looking to do one of those things, there simply are not enough of them.
Right.
You can come out of school with zero debt. You have a transferable skill that you could take anywhere in the planet. You could be your own boss. You can sort of morph into whatever you want to do.
Yep.
And I think it's fantastic that those facilities and opportunities are here in Oakland County. We hear about some of the new things coming out, self-driving cars, artificial intelligence. What's an area that might be growing in our county that we haven't heard much about, or something that's an up-and-comer?
Well, I think autonomous vehicles you're going to hear more and more about. The county recently put out a proposal to partner with companies to help us expand our infrastructure and really advance Oakland County's effort in autonomous vehicles. I know that that there is on March 19th, Waymo is going to be over in the Novi Center providing for a selected group their ability to see their self-driving cars, et cetera. And they actually came to Michigan several months ago to figure out how the autonomous vehicles would run in winter. So I guess on days like yesterday when we were all saying, why do we live here in the winter?
Right.
The good news is there's companies that want to be in Michigan and in Oakland County because of the snow and because of the winter. And autonomous vehicles are one of those segments of the business sectors that want to be here.
That's terrific. Just on a lighter note, Mary Ann Henry, the president of GOGOP, says she's very proud to have you back in your old neighborhood. I think if we were to travel about a mile west, we'd be in Gingellville. So it's really great to have you here join us on our show. This is our second episode of On the Right Side. We've been talking to Mike Gingell, chairman of the Oakland County Board of Commissioners. We just want to thank you for coming and hope you'll return and see us again.
Great. Well, I appreciate being here, and I think GOGOP does a great job, so keep up the good work.
Well, we will. Thank you very much. Again, this is Al Hassinger for GOGOP, and this is On the Right Side. Thank you for joining us.